Welcome back. Yesterday we saw the speech from the South African president to the nation on the National Reconciliation Day. But the speech is full of contradictions, and we will be having a look at some of these contradictions, where on the one hand he talks about unity in the nation, and on the other hand he proposes division between the different cultures that make up the population of the Rainbow Nation. So let us start with the speech, and where contradictions come in, the speech will be suspended and I will point out some of the contradictions or fake information that he talks about.
It is indeed my privilege to be here in Bergville, where we are marking our National Day of Reconciliation, where we have set aside time to celebrate how far we have come in restoring the broken bonds of the past and in building a united nation. A special greeting to the people of this place that is so rich in history. This place has a rich history because in the late 1880s to the South African War of 1899, when a small fort was built here, this area has been witness to a past of both turbulence and progress. Bergville is also the gateway to the Ukahlamba Drakensberg Park, where our forebears, the Sun, made their rock art at this place, which is now regarded as a World Heritage Site, which in many ways gives us a glimpse into the lives of our ancestors who lived here thousands and thousands of years ago. The design of our national coat of arms pays homage to our Khoisan forebears, and every time it is displayed, we are reminded of the deep and enduring links between us and our ancient past. This is a place of immense beauty, lying at the foot of the majestic Drakensberg Mountains. But like many parts of this province, it has been in the grip of drought. So we are all immensely pleased that last week the heavens opened to give us some relief and to give Bergville some relief in the form of rain. As we celebrate the coming of the rains, today is, however, a day of celebration, a celebration of the triumph of reconciliation over retribution, of goodwill over animosity, and of fellowship over hatred. As a people, we have overcome a bitter past and stand here today to proclaim to ourselves, proud South Africans, black and white, because being able to have the strength and the commitment to resolve the bitterness of the past is clearly a mark of a great people. And it is for this reason that we regard ourselves as a great people, as South Africans, because in many ways we have done what many other countries have not been able to do, to overcome our differences and to chart a way to the future. Many people around the world thought and felt that our problems that emanated from colonialism and apartheid oppression were intractable, and they thought that South Africa would descend in a civil war or a racial war that would never end. But we've been able to surprise the whole world by resolving our problems, and today we are living testimony of having done precisely that. So we are a great people because a great people are those that have the resolve and the commitment to resolve their own problems that emanate from the past, and we have done that. This day of the year was proclaimed as the day of the vow by our apartheid rulers to remember the fierce battle of 1838 at the Ngome River between the Voortrekkers and the Zulu warriors under the leadership of His Majesty King Dingane. In that historic battle, brave Zulu warriors with assegais succumbed in large numbers to the firepower of the Voortrekkers. And it is said the Ngome River ran red with the blood of those freedom fighters, for they were freedom fighters, because they were fighting for the freedom of our land, and they sacrificed immensely, fighting against invaders.
Yes, Dingane was one of the Zulu people's leaders, but he was no freedom fighter. Dingane came to power in 1828 after assassinating his half-brother Shaka with the help of another brother, Amelangana, as well as Mbapa, Shaka's advisor. They were traditionally said to have killed Shaka because of his increase in brutal behavior after the death of his mother Nandi. So he did not fight for freedom, he fought for power, and getting dominance over others was the ultimate goal. Any person or group that might pose a threat to his power base was seen as a threat and needed to be eliminated. When the Voortrekkers showed up, they posed a threat to Dingane's power base, and he did not attack them to establish freedom, he attacked them to eliminate them and maintain power.
It is therefore significant that this day of the year also marks the day in 1961 on which Umkhonto weSizwe, the military wing of the African National Congress, was formed to resist the savagery of apartheid dispossession and oppression. When we attained our democracy in 1994, we took a very clear and conscious decision that the 16th of December would be a day on which we commemorate both these historical events, one that took place in 1838 and the other that took place in 1961. And that in doing so, we would seek to reconcile our nation. This day that once symbolized the domination of one group over another is now the occasion to celebrate the pact we made to start a clean slate.
It is interesting that only the domination over the masses are being mentioned. But what about the current domination of one group that call themselves the African National Congress over the minority groups in the country? When you are in the dominant position, you only see the past where you were dominated and do not see the current domination by your own group. The legislation passed over the past 25 years against some of the minority groups are very similar to the legislation that was in place during the apartheid years, where one part of the population is suppressed from the employment market. So, would you agree that apartheid is still alive and well in South Africa, even though it is not managed by a minority group, but by the majority group?
To strive towards realizing a society founded on reconciliation, non-racialism, non-sexism, equality, peace, justice, and democracy. This is the society that the people of this country envisioned nearly 65 years ago in Kliptown and Gauteng when they drafted the Freedom Charter. And that is when they said, we, the people of South Africa, declare to all our country and to the world to know that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, and that no government can justly claim authority unless it is based on the will of the people. They continue to say that our people have been robbed of their birthright to land, economic liberty, and peace by a form of government that was founded on injustice and inequality. That our country will never be prosperous or free until all our people live in brotherhood, enjoying equal rights and opportunities. This vision of a nation reconciled is also embedded in our democratic constitution. As we gathered to adopt a new fundamental law for our free land, we said in the preamble of our constitution that reconciliation is about recognizing the injustices of our past and working together to correct them.
When we talk about the injustices, we also need to reconcile the injustices done by the ruling party's military wing against the minority groups. It was not just the minority group that perpetrated injustices, but all groups. While there were forced removals during the years of apartheid, and this was the wrong way to do things, placing explosive devices in public places during the 70s and 80s was also wrong and need to be acknowledged, where many innocent individuals were injured and many killed.
Reconciliation, therefore, is about acknowledging that even though we are diverse, with different histories and experiences, with different languages and cultures, we are united. Today, as we gather here in Bergville to celebrate this day, we must affirm the principles which guide us as we work towards reconciliation, peace, and unity. We must affirm that indeed we cannot achieve reconciliation unless we first recognize the injustices of our past, unless we are forthright and honest about the suffering that the people of this country have had to endure. On this day of reconciliation, all of us as South Africans are therefore called upon to reflect on where we have come from, on the injustices that the majority of our people have suffered, but also on the injustices that they continue to suffer. As a country, it is important that we recognize the devastating effect of domination by colonial and apartheid rulers. It is important that we recall how the indigenous African people were forced off their land, denied even the most basic of rights, how families were torn apart by the migrant labor system. It is important that we should listen to the ordinary people even of this area who continue to recall how their land was taken away and how today they continue to be destitute, without any land where their cattle can graze. Kubalulekile ukuthi ngalolu suku sikwazi ukuthi sikhumbule ukuthi umhlaba wokhokho bethu wathathwa kanjani, nokuthi abantu balapha eBergville kuze kube namhlanje abanawo umhlaba, abakwazi ukuthi balime ngendlela bebethanda ukulima ngayo, inkomo zabo azinayo indawo lapho zingahlala khona. Kubalulekile ukuthi ngalolu suku lwe-reconciliation yebo sikwazi ukuthi sikhumbule zonke lezo zinto sithole indlela esingakwazi ukulungisa lokho okumosheke ngakho.
It is interesting that the president mentioned that the people that suffered under the apartheid era still suffer today under the African National Congress management. I know it is not easy to change the world in 1 year or even 1 decade, but after a quarter of a century, when the people are still suffering, it must be because of the mismanagement of the ruling party that just look after themselves and their own families and friends, and in most cases forget about the other people till the next round of elections are due. So why are the people still suffering under the current government? Is it maybe because they are so focused on enriching themselves with the allocated funds that the people that they are supposed to serve never get the basics of services? There are many projects to provide the basic services to the rural communities, but because of the mismanagement of these projects, the projects almost never come to the point where the people can enjoy the fruits of the projects. Or is it because of the corruption and lack of competence of the contractors that win the tenders to complete these projects?
Reconciliation is about honoring those who suffered for injustice and freedom. We should recall how enduring dispossession, racism and poverty, how African people also resisted attempts to turn them into aliens in the land of their birth. We should recall how Africans, coloreds, and Indian South Africans, together with white Democrats, fought a brave and protracted struggle for freedom. We should recall the sacrifices that so many of our people made, suffering imprisonment, exile, burnings, torture, deprivation, and even death, so that we can today call ourselves a democracy. We do so not only to honor their memories, but also so we should never forget the price that was paid in human suffering terms for the achievement of a free South Africa. Reconciliation is about acknowledging that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our democracy, in our diversity. It makes us all equal citizens of this country with equal claim to being South Africans. This means that this country belongs to the descendants of those who came to these shores just a few generations ago in the same measure as it belongs to those whose ancestors have lived here for centuries. If all the people in this country, black and white, can call this place home, then it is essential that all its people must share equally in the land, the resources, and the wealth and the opportunity in South Africa. Reconciliation is therefore also about healing the wounds of the past to ensure that there is prosperity by restoring the land and the wealth of our nation to all people, realizing the rights of all South Africans to dignity, to security, and to comfort. We know that unless we move with speed to address the unresolved business of nation building, true reconciliation and unity will be difficult to achieve. This is clearly demonstrated on an issue such as the access and ownership of land.
Everybody is citizens of this country and can call themselves South Africans and can claim ownership of the land, except if you are white. With the proposed amendment to the expropriation part in the Constitution, Section 25, the majority want to take away land ownership from many of the citizens without giving anything in return. Land ownership is about buying and selling of land. Once you own the land, you need to develop the land and work the land. But as can be seen of past restoration projects, about 90% of these land redistribution projects failed and the land is fallow as the recipients did benefit from what the previous owners developed and now no more crops are produced on many of these parcels of land and the recipients wait for more handouts from the tax base. If you want the land, you need to work it or lose it.
Right here in Bergville is a stark example of the necessity of transforming patterns of land ownership for the benefit of our people. This town is the center of dairy and cattle ranching and plays an important role in the economy of the province and the country. But skewed patterns of racial ownership of land have played out here for centuries, where communities and subsistence farmers were removed from their ancestral land to make way for white-owned commercial farms. The story of dispossession in this province is indeed a painful one, and in many ways mirrors the lived experiences of millions of our people across this country. It is the priority of this government to accelerate the process of land reform, and in doing so, we will be guided by the decisions of our Parliament, which is currently debating and discussing the land issue. We will also be guided by the recommendations of the Presidential Advisory Panel on Land Reform. It is important that at the same time, we should continue with the restitution process and with freeing up state-owned land for farming and for the building of houses for our people. Now, in this area, we call upon private landowners, as we do to all other landowners across the land. We call upon commercial farmers and the private sector to take proactive steps to accelerate the land reform process by working with government so that we can ensure that those without land do get land, because we are resolved as a government that the land shall be returned to the people of our country.
But in an earlier part of the speech the President said that all races that make up the population of the country and call themselves South Africans are the people of the country. But now the "our people" that are being referred to is only one part of the nation and exclude many that helped to build this country. So the land is owned by South Africans and the land owned by foreigners should be expropriated without compensation and returned to all South Africans, not just some. Interesting that a minority group is now being excluded from the "our people" quote, as it seems that the minority South Africans are now being seen or sectioned as foreigners in the land of their birth for many centuries.
Land shall be restored to the people of our country that was taken away from them. And this will happen. For we cannot have true reconciliation without addressing the issue of land. I'd like to make it clear that if we do indeed want true reconciliation, which we are celebrating and commemorating today, we do need to address the injustices of the past. And the land question is one of those injustices that must be addressed. Whether we like it or not, it must happen here in South Africa in our lifetime. The other important issue as well in this area is the question of water. It cannot be that the dams in this area here do not reticulate water here, but reticulate water for the people in Gauteng. Reconciliation must also mean that the people of this area also do get water from the dams in this area as well. Now, to address the challenges our people face in this Utugela district, I have said to the Premier and the district mayor and the mayor that we are going to come back to launch the district development model here in Utugela district. Sifuna ukwenza njalo ukuthi sibuye la sizokwazi ukuqonda kahle ukuthi le inkinga ezikhona lapha eziphathe umphakathi singazixazulula kanjani na. Kufanele ukuthi sibuye sihamba nale district development model, le ndlela entsha esisebenza ngayo ezosenza ukuthi siphenye yonke into eyenzeka la. Kodwa ke sizawuthi masibuya, we will be starting from a very good foundation. Omasipala bethu lapha, kakhulu umasipala wethu lapha eBergville, ngempela i-report engiyitholile iyangibonisa ngempela ukuthi umasipala oqonde kahle futhi usebenza kahle. Akulula ukuthi uthole umasipala one clean audit iminyaka eminingi ukufana nalo masipala walapha. Siyamnqoma ke umasipala walapha. Sizawubuya ke sizosebenza no district mayor no local municipality mayors bethu balapha ukuthi sibone ukuthi inkinga ezikhona lapha eziphathe umphakathi singazixazulula kanjani. Reconciliation requires that we end inequality in all its forms, not only in access to land, but yes, in access to water, in access to education and skills, to employment, to housing, to healthcare and basic services.
End all inequalities of all forms. I am glad to hear this, as the President made a clear and concise statement to the effect. So the government will work towards removing all discriminatory legislation from the laws of the country. For all to be equal in South Africa, all laws should be for the nation and not just some. I am so glad to hear all the broad-based black economic empowerment and affirmative action laws would be repealed and allow for the citizens to compete in the labor market based on their capabilities and not their skin color. Should these laws remain on the books, reconciliation would not be possible. Even the policies from the ruling party in government that government divisions should only contract with a certain section of the population no matter the experience or competencies, other sections of the population are being excluded from the economy and promote inequalities between groups of the population.
It is this goal of improving the lives of the poor and marginalized that stands at the center of the programs of this government, and to which we must mobilize our collective efforts. Reconciliation is not only about race, it is also about effecting reconciliation on matters that affect the human condition. It is also about bridging the divide between men and women. This means that the empowerment of women and the achievement of gender equality is one of our most important tasks. Reconciliation means that we need to work with greater effort and urgency to end the scourge of gender-based violence. We cannot be a strong nation if we continue to abuse the women and the children of our country and continue to be intolerant towards members of the LGBTIQ+ community. We must impart the value of respect to our young so that boys and young men learn to respect women and girls. We must speak out against violence whenever we see it, whether it involves our brothers, our uncles, our sons, or our friends. We must say enough is enough when it comes to gender-based violence. Sekwanele, lesi sifo sesisikhulu kakhulu. It has spread throughout the country, and we cannot have reconciliation for as long as on a daily basis we hear about the raping of women and young girls, we hear about the killing of women in our country. It is enough, and it must come to an end. Reconciliation cannot be based on pious words, but it must be based on all South Africans reaching out to one another, to support one another, as we build a nation free of racism, exploitation, and oppression. We see evidence of national reconciliation in ordinary stories that are shared by our people, including on social media. They are stories of coexistence, of friendship, of camaraderie, but also of compassion and empathy. We hear stories of a white man engaging in lobola negotiations on behalf of an adopted black daughter. We hear stories of an Afrikaans-speaking toddler in a Springbok jersey, fluently rendering the national anthem with his eyes closed. We hear stories of interracial couples and adoptions and blended families, of neighbors of different races helping each other, and of domestic workers graduating at university because their employers supported their dreams. This is unity that is happening. It is not superficial, but it is unity that is unfolding in our nation. These stories show that although we have a long way to go to become a truly united nation, we have indeed become a truly united and reconciling nation. And day by day, little by little, we are breaking the barriers of race and class that were put in place by our past apartheid rulers to divide us. Reconciliation must mean that South Africans must reach out to one another through language, through cultural appreciation, through sports, through the activities of daily life. Although there may be pockets of intolerance that we find in a number of places and in our experiences, where there's evidence of intolerance amongst us as South Africans, we do, however, remain a people prepared to see each other as equals. We witnessed this clearly with the outpouring of joy when the Springboks won the Rugby World Cup in Japan last month, and when our own Zozibini Tunzi was crowned Miss Universe last week. We saw South Africans of all races take to the streets, proudly waving the national flag and proclaiming their pride in their country. Just as we saw earlier when we came in, when many people seated here were waving the flag, except for the VIPs who are sitting here in front. We also saw how our choir was blowing kisses to everyone here and saying, we love you, and how that overjoyed many of the people, including the women who are here in the audience. We need only look around us to see how far we have come. For the first time, our national rugby team is captained by a black young man, Usiya Kolisi. This is the first time it has ever happened. Our most famous athlete is a black woman, Mokgadi Caster-Semenya. And our most famous swimmer is Chad Leclerc, who is a white person.
When we call out the achievements of some citizens of South Africa, why is it so important to identify the individual's race while preaching reconciliation? A South African won the Miss Universe competition, a South African led the national rugby team, and a South African performed exceptionally on the world swimming arena. The fact that the president finds the need to mention the race of the individuals shows that race is still an issue for political matters, even though the population might not see these individuals mentioned as white or black but as South Africans.
Now, we see this in our schools, where black children and white children learn and play side by side. Something that was forbidden and that was even illegal in the past. And when the newspapers carry stories of top-performing matriculants, they are now African, white, Indian, and colored top-performing matriculants. In the past, the front pages of our newspapers only used to have white young people as top-performing matriculants. Today, that has now changed. We see it in our universities that are becoming ever more inclusive, where students graduate in traditional attire and their families break out into ululation and dance right at the graduation ceremonies. We see how our families become overjoyed as their children graduate, and thus showing that our universities are becoming more and more mixed and inclusive. We see it in our parliament, where young and old, black and white, represent the interests of their communities and give voice to their concerns. We see it on our television screens, where programming reflects the diversity of cultures of this country, but most especially the diversity of language. Let us not see language as a barrier to coexistence, but as a means to reach out to those with different cultures. Let us make an effort to learn each other's languages and to teach our own to others. Kufanele ukuthi sifunde ukuthi izilimi zabantu abanye sikwazi ukuzikhuluma. Sithole ukuthi yebo, umuntu okhule ekhuluma isiZulu uzozama ukuthi afunde nesisuthu, afunde nesipedi, afunde nesivenda. Ukuthi okhuluma isivenda njengami nje azifundise isiZulu, azifundise nesiXhosa, azifundise nezinye ilimi. We will not allow the prophets of doom to tell us that we are worse off than before 1994, or that race relations have deteriorated in our country. We have reached across the divide and embrace each other, and in this month and every month we must continue to do so. Despite our backgrounds, despite our cultures, as well as beliefs and political affiliations, we are indeed one nation. In commemorating the 25 years of democracy and in line with established international practice, I have decided, in terms of the Constitution, to grant a special remission of sentence to specific categories of sentenced offenders, probationers, and parolees. Remissions of sentences are always carefully considered, taking into account the interests of the public and the administration of justice. We recognize that interracial incarceration has followed a judicial process and that sentences have been duly imposed on those who were found guilty of certain crimes after conviction. There have been previous remissions of this nature granted to coincide with important national days. These include President Nelson Mandela's inauguration on the 10th of May 1994. They also include the first anniversary of our freedom on the 27th of April in 1995. It also includes the Madiba's 80th birthday on July 18 in 1998. It also includes the first year of President Mbeki's second term of office on 30th May in 2005, and in celebration of 18 years of freedom on the 27th of April in 2012. This decision of giving remission to those who are in prison and those who are on probation will be implemented in various phases, starting with special categories, including women, children, the elderly, the youth, and inmates with disabilities. The Minister of Justice and Correctional Services will provide the relevant details and specific circumstances with regard to the remission and the release of those prisoners and relevant offenders. It must be emphasized that this remission of sentences excludes those who are sentenced for sexual offenses, for violent, aggressive offenses, as well as people who are declared dangerous criminals in terms of Section 286A of the Criminal Procedure Act of 1977. So those who have been sentenced for sexual offenses, rape, and murder of women are not affected by this announcement that I am making. Compatriots and friends, in striving to build a strong, united nation, we will not forget our past, nor seek to diminish its impact. It lives with us today still. But as the famous son of this province, Alan Paton, once said, it is not forgive and forget, as if nothing wrong had ever happened, but forgive and go forward. It is about building on the mistakes of the past and the energy generated by reconciliation to create a new future. We look to this new future with hope. We are all products of our past, but let it not be that our past should hold us down and keep us as its prisoners. Just as the river that once ran red with blood has been washed clean, So too, let us renew, let us reconcile, let us move together to realize the South Africa that we all want. Let us give effect and meaning to the profound words that are contained in the preamble of our Constitution, in which we say, "We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who worked to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. We therefore, through our freely elected representatives, adopt this Constitution as the supreme law of the Republic, so as to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society that is based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. To lay the foundations for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equally protected by the law, and improve the quality of life of all citizens, free the potential of each person, and build a united, democratic South Africa, able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations. May God protect our people. Nkosi sigelela i-Afrika morena, buluka sichaba sa Yesu. God sien South Africa. God bless South Africa. Mudzimu patuchedza Africa. Hosi katekisa Africa ya hina. And with those words, I wish you all a blessed Reconciliation Day as we move forward to continue building our beautiful country. Thank you very much.
Building a unified nation would be possible if the politicians just keep their opinions to themselves. It is politicians that with their words fuel racial division as they work towards dividing a nation between racial lines. And the national media is complicit to the fire that some politicians try to start between the various nationalities that inhabit this beautiful country. With politicians constantly referring to the past, they do not look forward to the possibilities of a unified nation without discriminatory legislations where every person that make up the population determine their own future, not based on discrimination due to skin color, but due to their own capabilities. Every individual should have the opportunity to contribute in a positive manner towards the advancement of the nation and the country. Every person should be responsible for their own development and actions. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe, like and share.